Chapter 199. Together with the original Qianquan bag, plus the box that was sealed with the pure Yang true fire, the head of the palace solemnly handed it over to Zhanxian. After Zhanxian respectfully received it, the palace master waved his hand, and a spiritual light directly entered Zhanxian's sea of consciousness, but it was a set of mnemonic techniques used to open the seal of the pure Yang true fire. The third-grade alchemist master in the early stage of the foundation stage, Zhanxian, I look forward to the day when you refine the pure Yang true fire. This sentence, the head of the palace did not have any false elements in it. It was completely sincere expectation. However, this pure Yang true fire, you can only keep it for up to 300 years. When the time is over, it will automatically return to the secret pavilion of my Chunyang palace. You have to hurry up. This disciple will do his best not to let the palace master and the elders down. Zhanxian immediately expressed his determination. In his heart, he was glad that he had just decisively taken out a branch of the Penglai divine wood. If not, he didn't know how long it would take for him to get in touch with the pure Yang true fire. That is, the head of the palace in Chunyang Palace could open the secret pavilion of the Chunyang Palace at any time and anywhere and take out the fire from it. It seemed that the palace master was very assured of Zhanxian, and even the control method was also taught. It must be known that without this method, even if Wu Xiong was here, he would not be able to open the seal. After the reward was finished, the questions were also solved. The head of the palace had newly obtained the Penglai divine wood. He did not stay in the council hall at all. Together with several elders, he found a place to study the small branch of the Penglai divine wood. If it could survive, maybe in addition to the pure Yang true fire, Chunyang Palace might also have a kind of wood divine object. Wang Yong stayed. When the head of the palace called him, he waved his hand and refused. The old man is a fire cultivator. This Penglai divine wood and I have no fate. I still have to guide my grand disciple. This was reasonable. Everyone did not say much and let Wang Yong stay by himself. Gao Yu and Zhanxian still respectfully served Wang Yong. After everyone disappeared, Wang Yong slapped the table and complained to Zhanxian, "Kid, did you not see my hint or what? How can you choose this pure Yang true fire? This disciple just wants to try if this disciple has this blessing." In the face of his own master ancestor, Zhanxian did not dare to be presumptuous. He has always maintained that kind of respectful attitude and answered questions in the same way. Blessing? Wang Yong was stunned, but he did not immediately refute Zhanxian. Apparently, he thought of Zhanxian's actions over the years. It seemed that Zhanxian was really a person with great fortune. Otherwise, how could he immediately find an underground spiritual vein that was not inferior to the main vein of Chunyang Palace, and climb the heaven ladder and refine the heaven-seizing pill with the strength of the qi refining stage? These were not things that a person without a blessing could do. Well, it's good to try. After thinking this through, Wang Yong nodded and didn't dwell on this issue. If you miss out on the black flame crystal, then so be it. At most, when your cultivation is higher, you can refine a few high-grade pills in exchange. It's just a pity that in alchemy, this old man and you can't give you too much guidance. For the alchemy level of his own grand disciple, even Wang Yong had to admit defeat. Although Wang Yong was also a fire cultivator, he, like Gao Yu, focused on fighting, focused on refining, and was not proficient in the direction of alchemy. Zhanxian, at a young age, could refine the third-grade foundation building pill in the foundation building stage. He was definitely a genius. This pure Yang true fire, maybe Zhanxian really had this opportunity. Zhanxian did not have much contact with his master ancestor Wang Yong's previous life. After Zhanxian was apprenticed, Wang Yong had already begun to retreat to the Deshang stage. Until the incident in Chunyang Palace, Wang Yong failed to break through. In order to protect his apprentice, he finally died with a Yuanying stage master of the enemy, which was a pity. Since Zhanxian had been reborn, he naturally would not let these tragedies repeat themselves. Although Wang Yong's words were not much, his intention to protect was very obvious. Zhanxian could certainly feel this kind of care. However, Zhanxian also knew that Wang Yong's care was more for Gao Yu. After all, Wang Yong and Zhanxian did not have much contact. He just loved the house and its crow. For Yangchen, Wang Yong protected Gao Yu, which was the greatest kindness. Listening to Wang Yong's words, Yangchen immediately said, "Thank you for the care of the ancestor. Your apprentice will work hard and never let down the expectations of the ancestor." After thinking about it, Yangchen decided to give Wang Yong more confidence. His arrangements in Chunyang Palace had already made some progress. Now that there was the ancestor in charge, naturally some things would be easier to arrange. "Ancestor, this apprentice's apprentice, please restrict the surroundings. Next, this apprentice's apprentice doesn't want others to know." Yangchen said to Wang Yong very seriously. The expression on his face was very solemn. Even Gao Yu had never seen Yangchen with such a cautious expression. Wang Yong was stunned and frowned, but still didn't say anything. With a wave of his hand, a restriction came out. "Okay, I have already restricted this place. If you have something to say, you can rest assured." "Not enough, Master Ancestor." Yangchen shook his head firmly. It seemed that he did not give Wang Yong face. "It's a big deal, Master Ancestor, at least 9 restrictions." "Yangchen!" Gao Yu immediately shouted loudly. Wang Yong was Gao Yu's master. Did Yangchen even worry about him? Yangchen's words made Wang Yong curious. What kind of secret needed to use 9 restrictions to ensure that it would not be leaked? Staring at Yangchen's eyes for a while, the momentum of the Yuanying stage ancestor was also indirectly released, lightly pressing Yangchen. But Yangchen seemed to feel nothing and shook his head stubbornly. "Not enough, Master Ancestor." "Good." Wang Yong was serious by Yangchen. With a wave of his hand, more than a dozen restrictions sealed the meeting hall where the 3 of them were located. After doing all this, Wang Yong sat in his seat and stared at Yangchen. "Okay, it's impossible to not disturb the palace master. I know the content of our conversation. What do you want to say? Say it." Yangchen did not directly open his mouth, but took out the jade box that Wu Xiong had given him from the merit ring. He held it in both hands and placed it on the table beside Wang Yong. "What is this?" Wang Yong asked in horror. On the box, there were talismans and formations made by a master of the Deshang stage, which made Wang Yong, a master of the advanced Yuanying stage, feel a burst of fear. What kind of thing needed such a seal? It seemed to be comparable to the restriction that sealed the pure Yang true fire. "Master Ancestor, this box has a total of 9 layers. Each layer has the same powerful restriction seal." Yangchen pointed to the jade box and said, "This is the seal made by Elder Wu Xiong himself. What is sealed inside is the heaven-seizing pill." Chapter 200. Heaven-seizing pill? Not only Wang Yong, but even Gao Yu on the side exclaimed at the same time. Even if Wang Yong was already a Yuanying stage ancestor, his state of mind had reached the state of not changing even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him, but he couldn't help but exclaim, and his voice was trembling, "Is this the heaven-seizing pill that was refined for Elder Wu Xiong? You actually refined 2 of them?" Wang Yong couldn't help but lose his composure. Even Wu Xiong, a master of the Deshang stage who was about to ascend, would turn pale in the face of the heaven-seizing pill, let alone Wang Yong, a mere Yuanying stage ancestor. The first thing that came to Wang Yong's mind was that Yangchen refined more than 1 heaven-seizing pill. Otherwise, Elder Wu Xiong would use one himself. Where would the extra heaven-seizing pill come from? Gao Yu on the side had already been shocked. This kind of powerful thing made Gao Yu unable to believe everything she saw and heard. No wonder Yangchen had to be so cautious. If it was Gao Yu, not to mention the 9 layers of restrictions, maybe she would directly ask for 18 layers. The excessive shock even made Gao Yu directly lose the ability to speak. She stood in the same place, dumbfounded, and could no longer make any movements. Yangchen seemed to have been mentally prepared. When he saw it, he directly rushed to Gao Yu's side and held his master's shoulder with both hands. He slowly helped Gao Yu to sit on the chair next to him, separated from Wang Yong by a table, and in the middle was the huge jade box. Wang Yong didn't care about the arrangement of the master and apprentice sitting opposite to each other. His eyes had already been attracted by the jade box containing the heaven-seizing pill, and he couldn't move away for half a second. Until the 2 people were in a daze for at least a stick of incense, Yangchen coughed softly and woke up the 2 people who were in extreme shock. 2 heaven-seizing pills were refined, right? As soon as he woke up, Wang Yong eagerly asked Xianxia, "Xianxia, is it? Master Ancestor, how can there be 2 heaven-seizing pills?" Xianxia smiled bitterly and explained helplessly, "If 2 can be refined at a time, then this heaven-seizing pill is too ordinary, right? Then how about this one?" Wang Yong's face was already filled with fear. He did not even dare to say the obvious truth. "This is the one we refined for Elder Wu Xiong." Xianxia nodded and said it very clearly, positively and clearly to ensure that Wang Yong and Gao Yu could understand it clearly. "Then why is it in your hands?" Hearing Xianxia's exact answer, Wang Yong and Gao Yu's first reaction was not that they had picked up a big bargain, but as if they had caused a great disaster. Their voices trembled as they spoke at the beginning. "Elder Wu Xiong no longer needs this pill, so he gave it to me." Yang Chen's gentle voice seemed to have a magic power to calm people's hearts. Of course, the content of these words made Wang Yong and Gao Yu, whose hearts had almost hung in their throats, slowly calm down. "Heavens!" Gao Yu slumped in the chair regardless of her image. "I was almost scared to death by you, you guy." Wang Yong, who was opposite to Gao Yu, did not seem to be much better than Gao Yu. The sweat on his head dared to come out at this time. A drop of sweat fell to the ground. Wang Yong did not seem to be aware of it. The heavy breathing made people unable to believe that this was the breathing of a Yuanying stage ancestor. Hohu, Wang Yong took a few deep breaths and recovered some spirit. The first thing he did at this time was not to immediately ask Xianxia what was going on, but immediately on the basis of the dozens of restrictions that he had originally arranged, he did not know how many layers of restrictions he had set up. Until a Yuanying stage ancestor felt tired, he stopped. "Why did Elder Wu Xiong give it to you? Why doesn't he need it?" After doing all this, Wang Yong moved his eyes from the jade box to Xianxia. Looking at the calm and composed grand disciple in front of him, Wang Yong suddenly had a feeling that he could not see through him. A junior in the foundation stage could actually refine the heaven-seizing pill that only a master of the Deshang stage would use to ascend. Everything was like a dream. Because this heaven-seizing pill is not a perfect heaven-seizing pill. After Xianxia said this sentence first, he began to slowly tell Wang Yong and Gao Yu about what happened at the time of refining the heaven-seizing pill. In particular, after the heaven-seizing pill failed to cross the pill tribulation and Wu Xiong replaced it, he realized the power of the wind tribulation in advance. The fact that Elder Wu Xiong was full of confidence in ascension also made the two understand that this heaven-seizing pill was no longer essential to Wu Xiong, so it appeared in the hands of Xianxia. Of course, the bet with He Lianyun for the fire seed, Xianxia did not let it go. Hearing that He Lianyun, a Yuanying stage ancestor, even wanted to embarrass Xianxia, a junior in the Qi refining stage at that time, even Wang Yong began to curse out loud. He could not see where this ancestor was like a Yuanying stage ancestor. He was clearly a village old man who protected his child. The refining process of the heaven-seizing pill, the ups and downs, Gao Yu and Wang Yong listened with relish. When the later pill tribulation appeared, Wang Yong even began to impatiently ask what the situation of the Yin fire tribulation was like at the time of the pill tribulation, and his excitement was overflowing. Please forgive this disciple for being presumptuous. Xianxia's right hand stretched out and reached Wang Yong's forehead, but his left hand reached out to his master Gao Yu. Wang Yong was stunned and suddenly understood that Xianxia was planning to put the situation in his memory into his spiritual awareness, so that he could feel the process at that time through Xianxia's memory. At the moment, no matter how much he did not pay attention to his image, he directly put his forehead on it. Wang Yong did this and Gao Yu also followed suit, sticking his forehead to Xianxia's hand. The scene when the pill tribulation occurred reappeared in Wang Yong and Gao Yu's spiritual awareness. Fortunately, after Xianxia's foundation, his sea of consciousness suddenly changed, and he could support such a way to let others see the scene he wanted others to see. This was the technique of the spiritual world. Even Deng Ya and others could only comprehend the situation at the time, but could not share it with others. Wang Yong, who was excited, did not care about this small detail at all, and was immersed in the process of the pill tribulation. Thunder tribulation, Yin fire tribulation, wind tribulation. The scene of the arrival of the three disasters was fully presented in the two people's spiritual awareness, as if it happened in front of them. Even Wu Xiong's final process of blocking the wind tribulation was not missed. Yang Chen had already retracted his hand. Wang Yong and Gao Yu were still immersed in the scene of the pill tribulation and could not extricate themselves. Yang Chen didn't make a sound to disturb them, quietly waiting for the two to wake up. After a long time, Wang Yong woke up from that kind of contemplation. His face was full of joy, and he took a long breath. So that's the case. This can save me at least 100 years of hard work. Chapter 201. Gao Yu also awoke from her contemplation under Wang Yong's happy sigh, and she also benefited a lot. Just the process of the pill tribulation had given her a more intuitive understanding of the three disasters. This would be extremely beneficial for her future tribulations. Wang Yong didn't know how to describe his own grand disciple now. Just met, he gave a surprise to the head of the palace and a group of elders. Penglai Divine Wood, 3 grades of Divine Wood Foundation Pill, 3rd grade Alchemist Master. Now there was a Heaven-seizing Pill and the Pill Tribulation of Heaven-seizing Pill. Penglai Divine Wood needn't be asked, it must have been given by Wu Xiong. Otherwise, how could Yang Chen, a disciple of the foundation stage, have such means to get it? Wu Xiong generously gave the Heaven-seizing Pill to Yang Chen. Obviously he would not care about the trivial Penglai Divine Wood. But that little branch of the divine tree was very important to the pure Yang Palace. If it could be cultivated successfully, after hundreds of years or even thousands of years, the pure Yang Palace would have another kind of treasure. Yang Chen, this heaven-seizing pill, what are you going to do with it? After Wang Yong settled his mind, he realized that Yang Chen must have a purpose for taking out this heaven-seizing pill, and it would not be as simple as telling him. He didn't wait for Yang Chen to speak, and asked directly. This showed that he was very eager, but the heaven-seizing pill had already made him confused. Master Ancestor, although this heaven-seizing pill is not a perfect heaven-seizing pill, it is still possible to increase the chance of ascension by 70%. Yang Chen slightly groaned, organized the words, and said, "This heaven-seizing pill, I and Master can't use it in a short time. This disciple wants to give it to Master Ancestor." "Give it to me?" Although Wang Yong had already guessed some, when Yang Chen really said it, Wang Yong was still very excited. This was the heaven-seizing pill, the refining of the medicinal pill even needed to cross the tribulation. Was it given to him? This was not a dream, right? The ancestor is also about to reach the Yuanying stage. As long as he is steady, with the impression of the pill tribulation, it should be easy to enter the Deshang stage within 100 years. When the time comes, with this heaven-seizing pill, even if Grandmaster transcends the tribulation and ascends, you will have 70% more confidence. Yang Chen said in a seemingly unintentional manner, Grandmaster doesn't have to worry about this disciple's filial piety. The speaker seemed unintentional, but the listener seemed to suddenly understand something. Yang Chen's words made Wang Yong suddenly realize that his recent mentality was a little impetuous. No matter what the reason was, Wang Yong wanted to quickly attack the Deshang stage. This kind of anxious mentality was the biggest heart demon. Realizing that there was a problem with his mentality, for Wang Yong, a Yuanying stage ancestor, he immediately knew how to solve it. It was easy to say that it was to adjust one's mentality, but it was not so easy to do. The more powerful an expert was, the harder it would be for them to extricate themselves from a dead end. However, Yang Chen now gave the heaven-seizing pill to Wang Yong, which meant that as long as Wang Yong could reach the Deshang stage, he would have at least a 70% chance of ascending. According to Yang Chen's words, with the experience of watching the pill tribulation, this chance could reach as many as 90%. Even the Yin fire tribulation of the Yuanying stage to the Deshang stage was more than 80% sure. Now that there was such a certainty, Wang Yong did not have to rush to take some risks. Naturally, he could relax his mind and cultivate step by step. That is, according to Yang Chen's words, not only was the Deshang stage hopeful, but his ascension was also imminent. Good child. Wang Yong suddenly sighed with emotion. After praising Yang Chen, he laughed. I thought that I had been trapped in the realm of the Yuanying stage in my life. Now your words, let me see the hope of ascension. Good. Good. Suddenly putting down the devil in his heart, he suddenly felt refreshed, and Wang Yong also showed a rare relaxed smile. Yang Chen certainly understood what was wrong with Wang Yong's cultivation in his previous life. Now he only relied on a heaven-seizing pill to avoid the tragedy of Wang Yong in the future. It was absolutely worth it for Yang Chen to exchange a medicinal pill for a master in the future, not to mention that this master was still Yang Chen's master ancestor. Of course, Yang Chen also had selfishness. The improvement of Wang Yong's cultivation also meant the improvement of his status in the sect. With the improvement of Wang Yong's status, it was even more difficult for others to point fingers at Gao Yu and Yang Chen. From top to bottom, Yang Chen had to weave a protective net for Gao Yu in Chunyang Palace, so that she would no longer have to worry about it in this life. This heaven-seizing pill, you can also use it in the future. Are you really willing to give it to this old man? After Wang Yong laughed, he suddenly asked with some exploration. He wanted to know Yang Chen's current thoughts. What was he thinking? Master Ancestor, if I say something disrespectful, please forgive me. Yang Chen also smiled and said to Wang Yong. As soon as he finished this sentence, he was reprimanded by Gao Yu. Yang Chen, don't be rude to Master Ancestor. You say it, just say it. Wang Yong waved his hand and stopped Gao Yu's scolding. He was in a good mood now and didn't care about these words of Yang Chen. When Yang Chen said this, he wanted to know what this disrespect meant. This heaven-seizing pill is just an incomplete heaven-seizing pill. At best, it has 70% effectiveness. Yang Chen was not afraid of Wang Yong's anger and said directly with a smile, Master Ancestor's cultivation is high. Of course, he doesn't care about this 70% effectiveness of the heaven-seizing pill. When Master reaches the Dashang stage, I will refine a perfect heaven-seizing pill for Master. If Master Ancestor hasn't ascended at that time, you can't be jealous. When Wang Yong and Gao Yu heard this, they looked at each other and couldn't speak anymore. Now the two remembered that Yang Chen seemed to be a little guy who had successfully refined the heaven-seizing pill. When his cultivation was enough, maybe he could really refine a complete heaven-seizing pill. The two didn't know that if Yang Chen was really willing, a higher-level medicinal pill than the heaven-seizing pill was just a thought of Yang Chen. Good. Wang Yong praised again, and then sighed, I originally planned to guide you, but I didn't expect to be guided by you in turn. Well, Master Ancestor, I will accept your heaven-seizing pill with a thick face. With that said, he carefully put the jade box into the Qianquan bag, but he was not polite at all. Master. Gao Yu was a little reluctant when she saw it. In front of Wang Yong, she made a little girl's appearance. You just took the filial piety of your grand-disciple, you don't say to give your grand-disciple any benefits? She began to ask for benefits for Yang Chen. Ha! Wang Yong was happy and laughed. The new disciple is really protective. Well, of course, Master Ancestor can't take your things for nothing. What do you like in this Qianquan bag? You can choose at will. Chapter 202. Wang Yong's Qianquan bag was placed directly on the table for Gao Yu and Yang Chen to take. In Wang Yong's eyes, no matter how precious the things in the Qianquan bag were, they could not be more precious than his own ascension. Anyway, they were his disciples and grand disciples, and he would not let outsiders take advantage of them. He simply let them choose for themselves and take whatever they liked. Gao Yu shouted and grabbed Wang Yong's Qianquan bag. She sat on the chair and began to rummage through it with a smile. She still said with a smile, I have been interested in a few things of Master for a long time, but Master has been stingy and refused to give them. Now I finally have a chance. In front of Wang Yong, Gao Yu seemed to still be the playful little disciple whom Wang Yong loved. Yang Chen stood not far away with a smile on his face, looking at Gao Yu's happy smile. The kind of heartfelt joy of finding a long-cherished good thing made him feel that everything he had done was worth it. As long as he could make his master's face smile like this, Yang Chen was willing to pay anything. Gao Yu had already chosen a few things that she had long coveted, and then threw the Qianquan bag into Yang Chen's arms. Yang Chen, choose quickly. There are not many times when your grandmaster is generous. Wang Yong was watching with a smile, and he was not angry because of Gao Yu's words at all. When the Qianquan bag was in Yang Chen's hands, Wang Yong's eyes also looked over. It seemed that he wanted to see if Xianxian knew what was good and what he would pick out. However, the things that Gao Yu chose made Xianxian very speechless. All of them were related to the fire attribute, so that Xianxian could not help but want to remind her in Gao Yu's ear, "Master, you have the full value of the acquired water spiritual root. Why do you choose these fire attribute things?" Although he criticized in his heart, Xianxian had no intention of being polite to the Qinkuan bag that his grandmaster sent over. As soon as he opened his divine awareness, he immediately found a Qinkuan bag, which had been refined by an expert. There was the mark of Chunyang Palace on it. Compared with the Qinkuan bag that Xianxian had taken at the beginning, it was much better. He didn't know who Wang Yong intended to use it on, but since Xianxian saw it, it wasn't up to Wang Yong. Taking out the Qinkuan bag with one hand, Xianxian beamed with joy and said, "This Qinkuan bag is good. It's several times better than mine. Grandmaster, I got lucky." Seeing that Xianxian had taken a cosmos sack from the beginning, Wang Yong was also startled. He immediately remembered that Xianxian's original one had already been taken as evidence, and Xianxian was still using the inferior cosmos sack that he had obtained after killing that guy. Wang Yong decided to be kind to the end. He stretched out his hand and said, "Give it to me. Give me all the Qinkuan bags you got from killing people. I'll help you fuse and refine them. Don't let anyone steal my sect's pure yang real fire from the Qinkuan bags." With Wang Yong's words, Xianxian was even happier. It seemed that everyone had a cosmos sack, but everyone's was different. Those refined by an expert were not at the same level as those distributed by the sect. Not to mention the size of the storage space, just the degree of firmness of the cosmos sack was different. If some strong materials were added in the refining process, the quality of the cosmos sack could be improved. Of course, if a grotto heaven level magic weapon could be added to the refining process, it might be possible to refine a high-grade product like the herb garden in Xiangyang Mountain. If it was to be integrated with an immortal's cave, it would be even more amazing. 2 cosmos sacks could be integrated, or at least the space of the 2 cosmos sacks could be combined. That was why Wang Yong asked Xianxian to take out the cosmos sacks that he got from killing people. However, when he saw Xianxian take out more than 20 cosmos sacks in succession, even Wang Yong was speechless. Especially when a few of the cosmos sacks had the obvious marks of Taishanmen and Tianquan sect, it was even more shocking. "Are you a cultivator or a killer?" Gao Yu couldn't help but frown. Although she knew that Xianxian had killed a few killers, she didn't expect that there would be so many. "Killing too many people will harm your Dao heart. Do you understand? When you killed these people, did anyone else know?" Wang Yong, the nascent Soul Realm Grand Elder, was open-minded. There was no direct contradiction between cultivation and killing. Wang Yong just picked out a few cosmos sacks with marks and asked, but he was still afraid of bringing trouble to Xianxian. "No one knew when I killed people, but it's hard to say if anyone would know when these people came to find me." To put it bluntly, Xianxian didn't have any enmity with these people. They must have been ordered by someone to find trouble with Xianxian. At least the person who ordered them knew, but there was no definite evidence. "That's good. If someone asks, just pretend not to know." Wang Yong stretched out his hand and put all the cosmos sacks together with the one that Xianxian picked. "I'll go back and help you refine it. I'll give it to you in a few days." "I understand, Grandmaster. I don't know anything when asked." "I understand." Xianxian smiled and continued to explore the things in Wang Yong's cosmos sack. He didn't even raise his head. A few high-level medicinal materials, a few materials that could enhance the power of the fire attribute flying sword, and a jade slip, which recorded Wang Yong's refining experience, were also found by Xianxian. "There's such a good thing?" When Gao Yu saw it, she stretched out her hand. "Xianxian, you haven't been filial to your master since you became his disciple. Take this as filial to your master." After saying this, she seemed to feel a little embarrassed and added, "This fierce sun yard doesn't count. It doesn't belong to me alone." Xianxian looked at Wang Yong and then at Gao Yu. He could only carefully read the contents of the jade slip with his divine sense. Then, he helplessly handed it to Gao Yu and began to mutter, "Snatching things from your disciple. Take it as filial to your master." Moreover, won't your master pass it on to you in the future? Gao Yu grabbed the jade slip and checked it with a smile. At the same time, she lectured Yangchen so that he wouldn't be dissatisfied. Wang Yong sat on the side and watched Gao Yu bully Yangchen. He was happy and smiled without saying anything. His disciple and grand disciple had given him a new concern. In the future, in the sect, he would support them and speak up to ensure that they wouldn't be bullied. Now, there was nothing to be afraid of other people knowing about their conversation. Wang Yong had already begun to remove his restrictions one by one. Yangchen, what plans do you have after building your foundation? After Gao Yu waited for Yangchen to finish choosing things, she asked with concern, do you plan to cultivate in the sect or go out to gain experience? I plan to go out to gain experience. Yangchen quickly replied, I heard that the traitor, Chu Heng, has disappeared in the desolate Sand Valley. The people from the law enforcement hall haven't found him. I want to settle the score myself. Chapter 203. The contradiction between Yangchen and Chu Heng has been going on for a long time, and it has been a well-known thing in Chunyang Palace. However, now almost everyone was partial to Yangchen, and no one said a good word for Chu Heng. In any case, colluding with outsiders to kill his fellow disciples was an irrefutable fact. No one in any sect would allow this kind of thing to happen. Even the demon sects were the same. Therefore, it was not surprising that Yangchen wanted to find Chu Heng to settle his grievances. The head of the palace had said that after the punishment according to the sect rules, Yangchen could also settle a private account with Chu Heng. Now that the law enforcement hall could not find Chu Heng's whereabouts, Yangchen went to find it himself, and no one would say anything. Gao Yu wanted to say something, but looking at Wang Yong's expression, she did not speak after all. She just looked at Yangchen with a complicated look, and there was a hint of worry in her eyes. After this secret talk with Wang Yong and Gao Yu, Yangchen had almost set up a big backer for Gao Yu and herself in Chunyang Palace. Once Wang Yong entered the Dashang stage, not only would the strength of the entire Chunyang Palace be greatly improved, but the status of Gao Yu and Yangchen would also rise. Both Wang Yong and Gao Yu knew that it was of great importance, so the two had already decided to keep their mouths shut about the heaven-seizing pill. They would never disclose half a word to outsiders, even Wang Yong's other apprentices would not know. Making a fortune in silence was always the king's way. Once it was known, it was likely that the Chunyang Palace sect would split internally. Chu Heng was also a master in the middle stage of the foundation stage, and he had been in the foundation stage for many years. After going to the desolate valley to hone his skills, who knew how much he had grown now? Even several foundation stage disciples of the law enforcement hall and a Jedan stage master did not catch him in the desolate valley. His power could be imagined. To say that Chu Heng's disappearance was not because he was killed by the monsters in the desolate valley. It was a bit shameful to say that he actually escaped under the joint attack of 4 law enforcement hall disciples. Although he did not dare to fight back and hurt people, it was already a heavy slap in the face of the law enforcement hall, and also a slap in the face of Chunyang Palace. 4 law enforcement hall disciples were actually unable to stop a traitor. If word got out, it would really be a little shameful. Therefore, neither the palace master nor hall master Meng Xian of the law enforcement hall talked much about this matter. It was just that Du Qian secretly mentioned it to Yangchen, but it was also vague. He didn't say what had happened at the time, nor did he say who the 4 law enforcement hall disciples were. In short, there was only one conclusion. Chu Heng had escaped and was declared missing. Of course, Yangchen would not spare his mortal enemy, Chu Heng. Although Chu Heng was no longer in Chunyang Palace and was unlikely to suppress Yangchen again, Yangchen knew that some people, including Chu Heng's master, Bright Moon Temple Master Liang Xiaoming, were still somewhat dissatisfied with the sect's treatment of Chu Heng. If these people colluded with Chu Heng, they might bring trouble to Yangchen. Even if the trouble in the future was not mentioned, Chu Heng's previous actions were enough for Yangchen to kill him. In this life, Yangchen was not as kind as in his previous life. If people respected him, he would respect them tenfold, but if people wanted to kill him, he would kill them. Wang Yong did not object, Gao Yu did not object, and others naturally would not object. Whoever jumped out at this time was simply going against the whole Chunyang Palace. What's more, Zhanxian did not tell anyone except Wang Yong and Gao Yu. This matter had become a shame for Chunyang Palace. All the Foundation establishment disciples of the law enforcement hall were called back to be drilled crazily, and several law enforcement elders of the Gold Core realm went out in person to search for Chu Heng's whereabouts. Of course, Yang Chen went to kill Chu Heng under the guise of erasing the sect's shame. Since Chu Heng escaped from the barren Sand Valley, Yang Chen's first stop was certainly the barren Sand Valley. No one would know that Yang Chen went to the barren Sand Valley for other reasons besides chasing after Chu Heng. The barren Sand Valley was a famous place for training. In addition to some ferocious demonic beasts, there was another characteristic. The Earth's spiritual power in the barren Sand Valley was very strong. Generally, only Earth elementalists and wood elementalists whose 5 elements restrained Earth would go there. Chu Heng's water attribute was restrained by the Earth's spiritual power. At that time, he was sent here as a punishment. Yang Chen knew the reason why the barren Sand Valley was like this. There was a vein of Earth element true essence there. If this Earth element true essence was refined with the Earth element true secret art, it would be the best Earth element cultivation method, which was also the ultimate goal of Yang Chen's ideal Great Yin and Yang 5 elements cultivation method. It just so happened that Yang Chen obtained a Earth element true secret art among the immortals of the heavenly court. If he wanted to cultivate the Earth element true secret art, he must at least reach the Foundation establishment stage, and he must have the coordination of Earth element true essence. Now that Yang Chen had all the attribute spiritual power in the Foundation establishment stage, he had the conditions to cultivate it. Among the Great Yin and Yang 5 element secret art, Yang Chen had obtained the first wood true secret art, second wood true secret art, fourth fire true secret art, fifth earth true secret art, seventh metal true secret art, 10th water true secret art, and third fire, 6th earth, 8th metal, and 9th water. Collecting all 10 parts of the Great Yin and Yang 5 elements secret art was also Yang Chen's goal in this life in the mortal world. Although the remaining 4 parts were not in Yang Chen's mind, he knew that several sects had these kinds of cultivation methods. What Yang Chen had to do was to get them one by one according to the degree of difficulty. Speaking of which, the barren Sand Valley's Earth element true essence was the easiest to get for Yang Chen now, so it was naturally ranked first by Yang Chen. Others would only think that he was going to kill Chu Heng, and no one would doubt it. Of course, even if he wanted to leave, he would not leave immediately. Having just successfully built the Foundation establishment stage, Yang Chen had to consolidate for a period of time. Moreover, the latest sacrificial refining of the Heavenly Spirit Treasure refining secret art and the Earth Fiend sacrificial formation secret art originally only had the sacrificial refining of the fire attribute. This time, he had to sacrificial refine all his magic weapons. Now that Yang Chen's Yin and Yang 5 element spirit power has all reached the Foundation establishment stage, Yang Chen could all start to cultivate the high-level cultivation methods that he found in the scriptures pavilion. After Yang Chen replaced the remaining 6 low-level cultivation methods with high-level cultivation methods one by one, another month had passed. After doing all this, Yang Chen began to sacrificial refine the profound spirit furnace and the sword sheath immortal beheading blade. After the Foundation establishment stage, everything was different from the Qi refining stage, and the spiritual power in the body had almost undergone a qualitative change. After the profound spirit furnace and the immortal beheading blade were sacrificially refined by the Heavenly Spirit Treasure refining secret art and the Earth Fiend sacrificial formation secret art, the Yin and Yang 5 element spirit power was finally balanced again. Walking out of the retreat room again, he met his master Gao Yu. This time, Gao Yu's spirit was much better, and there was an unprecedented confidence on her face. Maybe it was the effect of Yang Chen's previous arrangement. This is the Qianquan bag that your master ancestor refined for you. Take it and try it. Gao Yu felt that after Yang Chen came out of seclusion, she came to wait for Yang Chen. When she saw him, she smiled and threw a belt-like thing to Yang Chen. Chapter 204. Wang Yong had definitely spent a lot of effort to refine the Qianquan bag for Yang Chen this time. Because of the last Qianquan bag, Yang Chen was even chased by a group of people, so Wang Yong would never allow this kind of thing to happen again to his own grand disciple. Together with the high-level Qinkuan bag that Wang Yong had prepared for someone, Wang Yong combined all the more than 20 Qinkuan bags handed over by Yang Chen together, and then he did not hesitate to throw in a lot of materials, changing the previous bag style, and directly refining it into a belt. In addition to the function of the Qinkuan bag, the belt was also a good protective magic weapon. On the belt, Wang Yong engraved 3 formations. One was a protective formation, one was an illusion formation, and the other was a concealment formation to hide one's whereabouts. On the buckle of the belt, there was also a place to insert a spirit stone. As long as a spirit stone was put in, it could maintain the spiritual power needed by the 3 formations. In addition to the protective formation, the other 2 could be activated according to the will of Yang Chen. The entrance of the Qinkuan bag was the most convenient place for Yang Chen. As long as his mind moved, it was very convenient to put or take things out. As for the space, it was at least dozens of times larger than the Qinkuan bag that Yang Chen first got, and it was even better than Wang Yong's Qinkuan bag. What surprised Yang Chen the most was that this Qinkuan bag had become a magic weapon, which could only be used after Yang Chen sacrificially refined it. Moreover, unless it was sacrificially refined with a special method, otherwise, even if someone grabbed this Qinkuan bag, it would be impossible to get anything in the Qinkuan bag, unless the other party's cultivation base was at least a big realm higher than Wang Yong's current realm, at least a master of the Deshang stage, to be able to break this restriction. Although Yang Chen had a merit ring, all the important things were placed in the merit ring, and he did not have to worry about the things in his Qinkuan bag. But this Qinkuan bag gave Yang Chen the best excuse, so that he did not have to explain why his things were hidden so tightly. This protective belt magical treasure with the function of a Qinkuan bag could also be upgraded after Yang Chen refined it. Yang Chen now has the profound spirit furnace for alchemy and the immortal beheading blade for attack. He only lacks a magic weapon for self-defense. Just in time, this belt appeared like charcoal in the snow. It could be seen that Wang Yong had guessed Yang Chen's family background for a long time before making this decision. Yang Chen was very grateful for his grandmaster's kind intentions. "You're going to hunt down the traitor. I should be going with you to take care of you." In front of Yang Chen, Gao Yu still put on the face of a master and said to Yang Chen seriously, "But your grandmaster said that your path is different from ours, and too much care may restrict you a lot. You're the most suitable person to go this time. Master won't be going with you. You're on your own." Gao Yu's words were more inclined to admonish. Yang Chen could feel that there was now a closeness between him and his master, perhaps it was because they shared a big secret. However, when Gao Yu spoke, she was always evasive, and he didn't know what she was hiding. Yang Chen, who was familiar with everything about Gao Yu, immediately noticed this abnormality. "Master, is there anything wrong with this?" Yang Chen asked with a frown, his eyes staring at Gao Yu's eyes, waiting for her answer. Gao Yu was a little uneasy under Yang Chen's gaze. After a moment of uneasiness, she simply gritted her teeth and said, "This time, the 4 disciples of the law enforcement hall chased Chu Heng, but they were all seriously injured by him in the barren sand valley. The head of the palace strictly ordered that it should not be leaked, but the news has been widely publicized by Chu Heng." Looking at Yang Chen, her eyes evaded again. "He also said some ugly words related to you. This disciple is listening." Hearing Gao Yu say this, Yang Chen was no longer so uneasy. It turned out that she was just worried about him, so there was no problem. As for Chu Heng, hurting the disciples of the law enforcement hall was already a capital crime. Yang Chen would not care about a guy who was doomed to die. Chu Heng claimed that it was not Chunyang Palace who expelled him from the sect, but he took the initiative to betray the Chunyang Palace. Since Gao Yu started to say it, she no longer hid anything. Anyway, what should be known would be known by Yang Chen. It was better to hear it from her mouth than from others. "He said that our Chunyang Palace accepted an executioner as an apprentice and has fallen into the devil's path. He was ashamed to be associated with us, so he took the initiative to betray the sect." "What's so ugly about it?" Yang Chen laughed. If it was only to this extent, not to mention Yang Chen, Chunyang Palace could treat him as a joke. He also said that 4 disciples of the law enforcement hall could not do anything to him in the barren sand valley where he was restrained. Chunyang Palace has long been full of maladies and has an undeserved reputation. Gao Yu shook her head and continued. He also said that you, a guy who did chores for several Yuaning realm alchemists, dared to covet the credit and falsely claimed the reputation of refining the heaven-seizing pill. You are a treacherous person with glib words. Everyone in Chunyang Palace was deceived by you and scolded you as a villain. Chu Heng is a traitor. What else can he say? Master, you don't have to worry about this, do you? Zhanxian listened and laughed again. Chu Heng, a master of Zhuji realm, could also do this kind of childish scolding. If Zhanxian cared about this, he might as well consider where he could find this guy and cut off his head with a knife. He said that as long as the law enforcement hall doesn't kill him this time, he must kill us, the 2 despicable and shameless master and disciple who colluded with each other with a sword to correct the world. Affected by Zhanxian's calm tone, Gao Yu's tone also relaxed. Even when she said that she was also called despicable and shameless, she said in a joking tone, even I accepted you as a disciple, it became a trick to gain fame by impersonating others. Chu Heng dares to say that you are despicable and shameless, master? To Gao Yu's surprise, Zhanxian, who was originally calm, suddenly became furious when he heard Chu Heng's words, which she didn't care about. His eyes almost instantly widened into the size of copper bells, and he gnashed his teeth and spat out a few words. He dares to insult you, master. Boom, Zhanxian's anger broke out wildly at this moment. Master was Zhanxian's reverse scale. Even if Chu Heng said that Zhanxian's words were unpleasant, Zhanxian would not care. But Chu Heng dared to insult Zhanxian's master. This was unforgivable. The 5 elements of yin and yang arts circulated wildly along with Zhanxian's anger. The originally peaceful 10 streams of spiritual power suddenly turned into 10 angry dragons that swam through his meridians. Zhanxian's eyes suddenly turned blood red, and a terrifying aura that was about to devour someone flashed before Zhanxian forcibly suppressed it. Chu Heng. Zhanxian's angry voice rang out so loudly that almost the entire Ardent Sun courtyard could hear it clearly. If I don't kill you, I am not human. Chapter 205. Originally, Zhanxian had thought of going to the desolate sand valley to kill Chu Heng as an excuse and cover. But now, Zhanxian wholeheartedly wanted to kill this guy. There had never been a moment when Zhanxian wanted to kill Chu Heng so badly. Chu Heng dared to insult his master. 100 deaths would not be enough to atone for his crime. Gao Yu had never seen Zhanxian angry, and she didn't know that Zhanxian was so terrifying when he was angry. In her opinion, since Zhanxian was calm when Chu Heng insulted him, he shouldn't be so angry. But she didn't expect that a simple insult to Zhanxian would drag Gao Yu into it and cause Zhanxian to be so angry. However, Zhanxian being so angry because of Chu Heng's insults made Gao Yu feel an indescribable sweetness in her heart. Apart from Master Wang Yong, Gao Yu hadn't felt this kind of love and care from others in a long time, especially when Zhanxian didn't care when he was insulted, but she was indignant when she was insulted. Although the desolate sand valley was called the desolate sand valley, it wasn't a small valley. In fact, the desolate sand valley was a huge hilly area, and most of it was made up of sand dunes. In this area, which was thousands of miles in radius, the earth attribute spirit power stood out, and the other attributes of spirit power were all invisibly repelled. It wasn't that there weren't any, but they were very rare. The scenery here was a vast expanse of desolate sand. Looking around, there were only sand dunes and more sand dunes. The entire desert was abnormally dry, and when the wind blew, it would cause dust to fill the sky. It was already a month later when Zhanxian's figure set foot on this land. During this time, Zhanxian first refined the belt, and then went to find the 4 law enforcement hall senior brothers who had been seriously injured by Chu Heng to thoroughly understand what had happened. It felt like things were more than 10 times more serious than what Zhanxian heard from Gao Yu. Chu Heng seemed to deliberately make Chunyang Palace lose face, and he used Zhanxian's name to belittle Zhanxian. At that time, he had the opportunity to kill the 4 disciples of the law enforcement hall, but he did not kill them. He just seriously injured the 4 people and even arrogantly asked a few unknown rogue cultivators to send them back to Chunyang Palace. What was even more outrageous was that not only did they publicize it all the way with great fanfare, but they also asked Chunyang Palace to pay a few rogue cultivators who sent them back. This was definitely a slap in the face of Chunyang Palace. The entire cultivation world had regarded this as a joke. The disciples of Chunyang Palace had been unable to raise their heads outside recently. It was not that they did not send masters to hunt him down, but Chu Heng was very cunning. Several gurus of the law enforcement hall in Jindan stage had almost turned the Baron's Sand Valley upside down during Yang Chen's closed-door training for a year, but they did not find Chu Heng's whereabouts. There was no trace of Chu Heng in other places, as if his whole person had disappeared from the world. Even a fool would not believe that there was no help behind the scenes. This matter obviously happened after Chunyang Palace asked Taishanmen and other sects to account for Yang Chen's mistake in climbing the heaven ladder. At that time, several major sects gave compensation and admitted their mistakes, and then Chu Heng's matter happened immediately. There could not be such a coincidence in this world. But in any case, as long as they did not find Chu Heng to enforce the sect rules, there was no way to erase the shame that Chu Heng had smeared on the face of Chunyang Palace. Not only Chunyang Palace, but also Yang Chen and Gao Yu had been laughed at by fellow Taoists everywhere during this period of time. Chu Heng dared to insult his master and his sect. If the slander against Yang Chen was counted, Chu Heng had completely forced Yang Chen into a corner. In this case, if Yang Chen did not stand up for Chunyang Palace, the reputation of Chunyang Palace would plummet. No wonder Wang Yong did not let Gao Yu follow him and said that Yang Chen was the most suitable person to solve this matter. Chunyang Palace had concealed the news from Yang Chen during the year when he was in closed-door training to refine elixirs and to break through to the Zhuji realm. It had clearly expressed their intention to protect Yang Chen. From the palace master to the servants, everyone knew about this, but they had always let Yang Chen cultivate with peace of mind. How could Yang Chen ignore the great expectations of his sect? Puff, Yang Chen's foot stepped heavily into the sand at the top of the dune. Standing on the top of the highest dune in sight, Yang Chen began to look around. From Chunyang Palace, Yang Chen flew on his flying sword, but when he arrived at the boundary of the desolate valley, he gave up flying sword and walked into the desolate valley step by step. The sand dune under his feet was also the one that Yang Chen spent 4 days walking from the edge of the desolate valley to here. The description of the 4 law enforcement disciples reminded Yang Chen of a special formation. In fact, it was simply impossible for Chu Heng, a guy who was restrained by the earth attribute spiritual power of the desolate valley, to defeat the siege of 4 law enforcement disciples. But this strange thing happened, and even the 4 law enforcement disciples felt it was a little unbelievable. Yang Chen asked about the situation at the time in detail. Adding up the contents of the 4 law enforcement disciples' recollections, Yang Chen had a general idea in his mind. Now that he walked step by step, it was to prove Yang Chen's guess. After a few days of walking hundreds of kilometers, Yang Chen's powerful spiritual sense had already felt the direction of the spiritual power underground, which was in line with his guess. At some point in time, a huge formation had been set up in the huge desolate valley of sand. This formation was so huge that it was impossible to use spirit stones to activate it. It could only take a long time and cleverly use some natural terrain and the direction of the earth vein to slowly activate it. It was impossible to set up such a formation without spending more than 500 years. Moreover, the preparation work before the formation required a person with at least the same level of spiritual sense as Yang Chen. Using Yang Chen's current method, they had to clearly understand the terrain of the entire desolate valley and the direction of the spiritual power. It was unknown how much effort it would take. Since this formation had been successful, it could be slowly activated, and at a specific location, Chu Heng would not be at a disadvantage against the 4, or even seriously injure his opponent. Without the help of this formation, it would be impossible for that idiot Chu Heng to reach such a level in 1,000 years. In his previous life, Yang Chen did not pay much attention to the desolate valley. In this life, because the great Yin-Yang 5 elemental secret arts 5th Earth True Art needed the 5th Earth True Essence here to cultivate, he was so concerned. As for the huge formation hidden in the barren sand valley, it seemed to have only one main function, and that was to force the fifth earth true essence from all directions to gather in a certain small area, so that it could be easily refined. After thoroughly understanding the role of this formation, Yang Chen's face also showed a smile. This matter seemed to be getting more and more interesting. Chapter 206. The truth seemed to have revealed the tip of the iceberg. No one knew how a certain sect found this fifth earth genuine essence and wanted to take it for themselves, but the fifth earth genuine essence was too scattered, so it could only be slowly gathered in this way. Moreover, it was a large sect. It was impossible for a small sect to do such a thing. Not to mention anything else, the number of masters at the level of Yuanying realm needed to set up the formation should not be less than 3. How could a small sect have such a foundation? Not to mention that the person who set up such a huge formation was definitely a formation master. There were only a few sects that could manage such a formation, including the sects of those Jedon masters who made things difficult for Yang Chen in the Heaven Ladder. The biggest suspect was, of course, Yang Chen's old rival, the Taishanmen who Chu Heng tried to curry favor with. They were also the biggest sect that admitted their mistakes and compensated for the mistakes of the Heaven Ladder at that time. On one side, they admitted their mistakes and gained a reputation of being open and aboveboard. On the other side, they did such a thing through Chu Heng, which constantly tarnished the reputation of Chunyang Palace. Comparing the two, the onlookers immediately made a judgment. The open and aboveboard would naturally win more cheers and support, while the tarnished would lose their reputation and future because of a small disciple. The most important thing was that if no one knew the cause of this formation, then as long as this vein of fifth earth genuine essence was refined and the formation was destroyed, even if an almighty immortal came, it would be impossible to find the trace of a large formation that once existed here. This was originally a large formation based on the natural terrain. When it returned to nature, who had evidence to prove what had happened? Others just used this formation conveniently, but Chunyang Palace was splashed with dirty water. Even if Chu Heng was rescued later and the sect rules were enforced, this reputation still could not be washed away. Others did not fall behind, only Chunyang Palace and Yang Chen had to bear a big black pot. It was a pity that Yang Chen came. A few days were enough for Yang Chen to confirm the existence of this large formation. It was impossible for others to sneak into Chunyang Palace silently. However, this large formation was too huge, with a radius of thousands of miles. With Yang Chen's speed, even if he flew on his sword, it would take him 2 days and 2 nights to fly. If he wanted to find out the specific direction of the large formation, it would be impossible to rely on Yang Chen to walk alone to measure it. It was estimated that others had already refined fifth earth genuine essence, and it was impossible to complete. Where did Yang Chen have so much time to squander now? In the face of a large formation of thousands of miles, even if Yang Chen had the memory of his previous life, he could not help but frown. He only knew that the fifth earth true essence existed here, but he did not know how it was distributed. Now that he was on the ground, he understood the difficulty of refining the fifth earth true essence. Not only that, but it also involved the face of the pure Yang Palace. If he did not figure out the trend of the formation, Yang Chen could not use the formation. To find out the situation of the large formation, Yang Chen could not do it alone. For a time, Yang Chen also began to be in a dilemma. He could only tell the existence of this large formation to the head of Chunyang Palace to decide. Of course, if the head of the palace knew about it, he would definitely send someone to investigate. Beating the grass to scare the snake was a must. Maybe there would be a fierce fight. It was just that at that time, it would not be so easy for Yang Chen to collect the fifth earth genuine essence. This kind of thing that might expose Yang Chen's details, unless it was a last resort, Yang Chen would never use it easily. Yang Chen, who was somewhat worried, walked almost aimlessly in the desert valley for a few days, and could not think of a way. Yang Chen had heard of this kind of large formation, but he had never seen it before. If he had enough time to explore it, he would definitely have no problem, but the problem now was that there was no time. Sitting on the top of a sand dune, Yang Chen struggled to think of a way. His eyes were also focused on the distant desert, and he did not waver for a long time. Hundreds of silk-like spiritual awareness explored out, and the movements within a radius of 100 feet were almost under his control. However, the arrangement of this large formation was extremely hidden, and it was naturally arranged according to the terrain. The exploration of the spiritual awareness could not explore too far away, and could only be concentrated on a point at the foot. Suddenly, there was a slight movement in the sand where he was sitting. A black sand scorpion held up two big pincers, and the spikes on its tail slowly poked its head out of the sand, and then crawled out. As soon as the sand scorpion moved, Xianxian's eyes were attracted. After watching the sand scorpion swagger around its own territory, it went to another place, its claws moved a few times, and then drilled into the sand. Xianxian's eyes suddenly lit up. He could not know the formation of the barren sand valley and the distribution of the fifth earth spiritual essence, but this did not mean that the animals living in the barren sand valley did not know. As long as it was within their territory, they must be clear about the distribution of the spiritual power. As long as he could communicate with these things, and find a few large demonic beasts, he might be able to know the distribution of the formation. To communicate with demonic beasts, one had to mention the beast-taming sects, beast-taming art. The beast-taming art of the beast-taming sect could establish a more direct way of communication with one's pet, and thus achieve the purpose of controlling one's pet. Fan Shan was a member of the beast-taming sect, and could even control a very powerful demonic beast at the Mahayana stage. In Xianxian's mind, the words of Taishang Laojuan's green bull before it beheaded still echoed. There is a magical power called the beast-taming art, which is a cultivation method of the demonic race. It is 100 times better than those of the beast-taming sect, but the requirements are harsh, and it depends on whether you have the luck. A magical power that was 100 times better than the beast-taming art of the beast-taming sect, how powerful would it be? However, the Green Bull also said that this magical power had harsh requirements, so Xianxian had to carefully recall this magical power and slowly began to ponder it. It was indeed very troublesome. This magical power needed the demonic race to cultivate, and Xianxian was a human, so it was naturally not easy. However, after careful pondering and analysis, Xianxian found a little surprising sign. It seemed that as long as he could solve some small problems, he would be able to cultivate this magical power of the beast-taming art. This beast-taming art was mainly the cultivation of the divine sense. Although it also needed the support of a strong spiritual power, the spiritual power was only the subduing power of the beast, and not the real core of control. The real use of communicating with the demonic beasts was still a strong divine sense. In order to establish this kind of communication, it was necessary to let the demonic beasts who wanted to communicate think that Xianxian was born in the demonic race. This was the most crucial point. As long as this problem was solved, everything could be easily solved. Chapter 207. For most people, it was impossible to make a monster think that they were a monster beast. However, Xianxian was an exception, especially after he had cultivated to the third layer of the three purities secret art. In the last paragraph of the beast-controlling secret art that the green ox gave Xianxian, there was something that Xianxian did not think was the original text of the beast-controlling secret art. Xianxian suspected that the green ox added it himself. What surprised Xianxian was that this paragraph was the green ox's own spiritual awareness cultivation secret art. This small section of the secret art was completely a spiritual awareness cultivation method, but it could simulate the green ox's own aura. The most important thing was that if Xianxian had not cultivated the three purities secret art, he would never have been able to comprehend it, let alone cultivate it. But it was so coincidental that Xianxian learned the cultivation method of the three purities secret art from the mouth of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord, and he had already cultivated it to the third layer. All of this made Xianxian feel that there was some inside story in it, but when he thought about it carefully, it was a bit incredible. If it was the plot of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord, he would not sacrifice himself and the green ox mount. Moreover, when the green ox said this, it could not guarantee that Xianxian could learn the three purities secret art from the mouth of the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord. It must be known that at that time, the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord let Xianxian choose his own cultivation method. If Xianxian directly chose the pill method and the refining method at that time, wouldn't everything be annihilated? However, whether it was a coincidence or an inside story, for Xianxian, there were only advantages and no disadvantages. It was not a burden to have more skills, especially this kind of cross-race magical power. If he could cultivate it, it would simply be a big killing weapon. After having a way, Xianxian immediately rushed to the nearest big town in the barren sand valley. There were many of these towns in the barren sand valley, and they were usually the place where the cultivators who practiced in the barren sand valley replenished their supplies. There were not only cultivators in these towns, but also mortals. Towns were usually built next to an oasis to facilitate people's lives. In this kind of town, it was much safer than in the wild. The cultivators also followed the rules and rarely made trouble in the town. Even if there was any discord, it would be resolved in the desert outside the town. Although no one knew who set this rule, and no one would use this rule to restrain others, no one would violate this invisible rule. The town was not big, with only a little more than 100 households. It was about the size of a village. By the time Xianxian arrived at the town, it was already late at night. As soon as he entered the town, he discovered that there were people using their divine senses to investigate. However, these divine senses were only probing, they didn't have any malicious intent. Xianxian didn't care at all. He found a room and settled down. People like Xianxian, who came to the town, found a room to live in, and immediately began to meditate and cultivate were almost everywhere. Xianxian's behavior was not unusual at all. However, no one knew that what Xianxian cultivated was a demon clan's divine ability. To cultivate the beast-controlling secret art, naturally, he had to succeed in cultivating the part of the Green Ox's secret art first. Xianxian had already studied the secret method back and forth several times along the way. Almost every obscure place was racked his brains to consider it, and he found the most likely explanation. He didn't dare to say that he had mastered it, but he understood most of it. The cultivation methods in this world were like this. After all, the records of cultivation methods were all words and images. Even if the description was accurate, there were still places where people would misunderstand. The so-called perception was reflected in the understanding of these words and images. Those with high perception could be said to have the deepest understanding. Everyone had a different understanding of the same cultivation method, so everyone would have different effects when they cultivated different cultivation methods. Perhaps except for the creator of the cultivation method, no one dared to say that they fully understood it. This was the case with the secret art left by the Green Ox. After all, the Green Ox was a demon clan. If Xianxian, a human, pondered the cultivation method, there would indeed be some deviation. Xianxian was a cautious person. Since the Green Ox said that the conditions for cultivation were harsh, it would not be exaggerated at all. Even with the cultivation experience of the Green Ox, he was careful to verify it for a long time. Along the way, he was considering various possibilities, and when he got here, he began to experiment slowly. Carefully mobilizing spiritual awareness, according to the cultivation method of the Green Ox, Xianxian began the first cultivation. With the foundation of the Three Purities secret art, in terms of mobilizing spiritual awareness, Xianxian completed the first part almost effortlessly. But soon Xianxian discovered that when he cultivated to the latter part, his own primordial spirit began to split involuntarily. Before cultivating the Three Purities secret art, Xianxian had never split the second spirit. Because Xianxian's current cultivation base was still very weak, splitting the spirit would inevitably cause the cultivation base to disperse, which would inevitably cause the cultivation speed to slow down. But now, the spirit began to split itself, completely out of Xianxian's control. Wanting to forcibly stop the cultivation method, Xianxian found that he could not stop, as if he had fallen into a trap, but he could never escape. This cultivation method was so evil, but it was like a devil's art, he couldn't stop it. Involuntarily shocked, Xianxian immediately settled his mind. Since there was no way back, he simply devoted himself to cultivation. In the violent shock of the splitting of the spiritual awareness, Xianxian's consciousness appeared in his own sea of consciousness in an instant. The long bloody river still divided the sea of consciousness into two halves. There was a shadow of the sun in the sky, there was lava under the blood river, and a towering tree connected the sky and the earth, but soon there was a little more in the sea of consciousness. Two huge and curved bullhorn phantoms appeared directly at both ends of the long bloody river, and a white arch bridge crossed the long bloody river, connecting the roots of the two bullhorns together. The two bullhorns exuded a wild and unruly aura, like a fierce giant bull perched in Xianxian's sea of consciousness. This aura was familiar to Xianxian. It was clearly the monster qi of Taishang Laojuan's green bull. After the transformation of the sea of consciousness was completed, Xianxian's consciousness also crashed back into his body, and he once again took over the control of the body. Then Xianxian was surprised to find that his spirit did not completely split. It seemed that only a small part was separated, and this part had completely had the aura of the green bull. It seemed that the part of the secret art left by the green bull had been successfully completed, and the two huge bullhorn phantoms in the sea of consciousness had fully explained all this. With Xianxian's experience, he could naturally understand that the phantoms were just because his cultivation of this cultivation method was not deep enough. When the cultivation was deep enough, the phantoms would become more and more solid, and the aura would become closer and closer to the green bull. Since this part had been completed, Xianxian immediately forgot the fear and began to ponder the beast-controlling secret art. Chapter 208. Compared with the secret art of Qingyo, the beast-controlling secret art was pitifully simple. In addition to requiring the monster race to cultivate, the rest was not complicated. Xianxian now has the breath of Qingyo, and immediately began to try to cultivate the beast-controlling secret art. This was a complete adventure. Fortunately, Xianxian's luck was good. With the foundation of the three purities secret art, even the secret art left by Qingyo could be accidentally practiced. It seemed that God was also letting Xianxian cultivate this beast-controlling secret art. In just one short night, Xianxian completed the initial cultivation of the beast-controlling secret art. When the beast-controlling secret art completed the circulation of the cultivation method for the first time, Xianxian seemed to feel a strange aura between heaven and earth. The original familiar breath of the monster seemed to have changed into a taste, becoming a little closer to Xianxian, and there was also a faint attraction. Xianxian did not need to use his spiritual awareness to explore, but he could easily distinguish the aura of various monsters from the surroundings. He could even roughly judge from these auras what type of monsters there were in his various directions, and how their strength was. This was something that even the people of the beast-taming sect might not be able to master. Even Fan Shan, who was at the nascent soul stage, might not be able to do so. Their beast-taming spell could only establish a connection with one type of demonic beast at most. Moreover, it needed to be conquered first. The beast-controlling secret art of Xianxian was completely different. The cultivation method of the monster race was the cultivation method of the monster race. After all, the connection with the monster race was still greater. In the town, Xianxian only stayed for one night in a hurry. Early the next morning, Xianxian left the town and rushed directly into the desert. He wanted to find a monster to try the new beast-controlling secret art. A sand scorpion, when it was caught by Xianxian, was still struggling, and its tail stung fiercely on Xianxian's hand. But when Xianxian's beast-controlling secret art was launched, the sand scorpion gradually stopped struggling and then became motionless. Communicating with the sand scorpion was to get the distribution of spiritual power within its sphere of influence. Soon, when Xianxian's will was transmitted into the consciousness of the sand scorpion, there was a blurred picture in Xianxian's mind. On the picture, the distribution of the earth's spiritual power appeared a little blurred. Xianxian was secretly ecstatic. Although this sand scorpion was small, it had successfully verified Xianxian's idea. Xianxian now had no need to tell the high level of Chunyang Palace about the formation of the sand scorpion. As long as he did it secretly, he could definitely make the Taishanmen suffer in silence. Doing it, Xianxian did not want to waste time now. Who knows how long this formation had been maintained and how much the fifth earth's spiritual power had been gathered. If Xianxian got it, he would be with him. After carefully sensing the surrounding aura, Xianxian immediately found a powerful demonic beast and flew in that direction. It was actually easy to distinguish which territory the demonic beasts were familiar with. The stronger the demonic beast, the larger its territory. It was a very simple principle. In this direction was an earth elemental beast that had lived for countless years. It had a gentle temperament but was powerful. It would not easily provoke cultivators, but ordinary cultivators did not dare to touch a single hair of this demonic beast. It was considered peaceful. Usually, this earth elemental beast would lurk under the sand dunes, cultivating while resting. It would not care even if someone passed by. It was precisely because of the earth elemental beast's characteristics that this area was relatively safe. People often passed through it. When Xianxian appeared, 3 teams of cultivators happened to pass by. Yo, isn't this the Daoist brother from Chunyang Palace? The belt on Xianxian's body had been engraved with an obvious Chunyang Palace symbol by Grandmaster Wang Yong. It could be seen at a glance from afar. The young man who was the leader of the 3 people, after seeing Xianxian's figure, immediately recognized Xianxian's sect from this mark, and his words were not very polite. What are you doing in such a hurry? Are you looking for Chu Heng who betrayed your sect? Aren't you afraid of being carried back to the sect? After Chu Heng injured them, he had sent the 4 disciples of the law enforcement hall back to Chunyang Palace. He had already become a laughing stock in the cultivation world. Chunyang Palace had sent more than a dozen Golden Core Grandmasters to search for Chu Heng's whereabouts. But after a year, Chu Heng was nowhere to be found. It made the disciples of Chunyang Palace unable to lift their heads no matter where they went. A glint flashed in Xianxian's eyes as he looked at the 3 fellows flying over. He was filled with impoliteness. The young leader didn't care at all. He placed the Taishanmen symbol on his cosmic bag in a conspicuous place, deliberately letting Xianxian see it clearly. The other 2 followed closely. The young leader slowed down the speed of his sword kinesis flight. With a mocking expression on his face, he stared at Xianxian without saying a word. Sometimes, this kind of silent insult was the most hurtful. The 3 of them clearly had the same idea. Xianxian was only an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator. The weakest of the 3 of them was at the advanced foundation establishment realm. 2 of them were at the peak of the foundation establishment realm, so how could they take Xianxian seriously? Although he didn't like these 3 guys, Xianxian was not an impulsive person. They met by chance, so there was no need to fight to the death. Even though the other party was a Taishanman, Xianxian wouldn't kill them on sight. He just stood quietly and said nothing. He waited for the 3 guys to leave. He still had business to deal with. It turns out that fellow Daoism Yang has come in person. Are you here to wash away your shame? Xianxian didn't speak, but it didn't mean that the other party would easily let go of Xianxian, especially after the young leader discovered the identity of Xianxian. Because of Chu Heng, the reputation of Xianxian of Chunyang Palace, in addition to the heaven-seizing pill and the alchemist, was more the object of ridicule in the barren Sand Valley. Especially the Taishanmen. Chunyang Palace actually wanted the Taishanmen to admit their mistakes and apologize because of Xianxian. How could they, who had always claimed to be the top disciple of the righteous path, tolerate such a thing? When they saw Xianxian, how could they be willing to let him go without ridiculing and humiliating him? Boring. It's not your turn to tell me what to do. Xianxian snorted coldly and responded rudely. After that, he didn't say anything more and still flew unhurriedly to his destination. Boring? How could it be? The young leader laughed out loud and waved his hand. The 3 of them laughed and followed behind Xianxian. They laughed loudly at Xianxian's back and said, "If you are seriously injured by Chu Heng, the traitor of Chunyang Palace, you can say that we are your saviors. We will definitely send you back to Chunyang Palace." Xianxian, who was also flying on his sword, suddenly stopped in the air. He made a light turn and faced the 3 Taishanmen disciples with a smile on his face. Do you know the whereabouts of Chu Heng? Is he still in this barren Sand Valley? Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, From young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.